I always thought betrayal would come like thunder, loud, sudden, explosive. But mine came dressed in gold and silence. It was a Thursday afternoon when my mother summoned me to the living room. Her voice was sweet, almost too sweet. She had baked date rolls, my favorite as a child, and laid them out on the coffee table like offerings at an altar. I should have known something was wrong. My mother only baked when she needed forgiveness or power. She asked me to sit. My father stood in the corner, arms folded, face unreadable. My brother Daniel hovered behind them, avoiding my eyes, and then she brought it out, the ring, gold, heavy, with a small ruby at the center, old-fashioned. It had belonged to her. Grandmother, she said, passed down to strong women. She smiled like it was a gift. Like this was a celebration. I didn't touch it. It's time, she said softly. Adam has agreed. I blinked. Adam, my cousin. The same boy who laughed with his friends in college when they found my poetry notebook. The boy who once said, loud enough for the whole cafeteria to hear, Olivia writes like she's in love with a girl. The boy who never let me forget it. I looked at the ring, then back at her. I'm with someone, I said. Quietly. My mother tilted her head. That's not real. I glanced at my father. His jaw clenched tighter. I love her, I continued, my voice trembling now. Her name is Ava. The room still. My mother's smile dropped. Her hand hovered over the ring like it burned. You're confused, she said. You've been reading those American books again, haven't you? No, I said. I've been alive for the first time in years. My father didn't speak. He didn't have to. He moved like a storm. 1 second he was across the room. The next his hand cracked across my cheek. Not hard enough to bruise, but enough to silence. I didn't cry. I heard Daniel breathe in sharply, but he didn't say a word. I raised a daughter, my father said. Not this. I stood up slowly, the burn on my skin, nothing compared to the fire behind my ribs. Then I guess you didn't raise me at all, I whispered. That night, I found Ava behind the mosque wall, where the bricks curved into shadow. She was trembling, always trembling, her hands clutching mine like they were prayer beads. They're going to force you, she said. I nodded. I won't do it, I told her. I'd rather lose them than lose myself. She looked at me like I was brave, but I wasn't. I was terrified. We kissed quickly, quietly, and parted like fugitives. When I returned home, the lights were off. The gate creaked open without a sound. I walked into the hallway and saw my suitcase, red, worn at the seams, sitting by the front door. On top of it, a folded piece of paper. You have until sunrise. I looked around. Daniel stood at the top of the stairs. I expected him to say something, anything, but he turned and walked away. In that moment, I understood. It wasn't a house anymore. It was a mausoleum, and they'd already buried me. I knelt by the suitcase and opened it. My clothes were folded like a stranger had packed them. My photo albums were gone, my books missing. They had erased the parts of me that remembered, and yet, sitting on top of my white t-shirt was that same cursed gold ring. Still in its box, a final mockery. I took it in my hand. It felt too heavy for something so small. I slipped it onto my finger just to see. It didn't fit. Too tight. Like it knew it didn't belong. I slipped it off and dropped it into the gutter outside. Let it rust in the mud. like every false promise they'd ever made me. I stood there by the gate as the house behind me went black, one room at a time. I listened to the silent stretch, to the cold settle around my ankles, like ankle chains. No one came out. No one called after me. I walked down the street without turning back, carrying nothing but a cracked suitcase and a heart that was still bleeding from the inside out. Was I still a daughter? Was I still loved? I didn't know, but I knew one thing. The ring wasn't mine, and neither was that life. When I was little, I used to stare at the mirror in my bedroom and whisper, I'm not real. Not because I didn't exist, but because nothing I was allowed to be felt like mine, my name, my clothes. Even my smile was choreographed. In our house, daughters were meant to be soft, silent, and shaped like tradition. We were judged by the sharpness of our eyeliner and the sweetness of our tea. Opinions were like rain, allowed in small doses, but never during sunlight. I learned early to live in parentheses. Every morning, I wore the clothes my mother laid out, long skirts, modest blouses, always ironed, always beige. Respectable, she called them, but to me, they were camouflage. I learned to speak with filters, never say too much, never speak first, never disagree with a man, even my younger brother, especially not at the dinner table. Once, when I said I wanted to be a journalist, my father chuckled between bites of lamb curry. Write your husband's grocery lists, he said. That's more useful. Everyone laughed. I did too, a second too late. Because I knew the rules. You don't show pain where it can be stepped on. But it wasn't until college that I realized what it meant to actually be seen. It was literature club, a small, overlooked room in the back corner of the English building, cluttered with mismatched chairs and dusty shelves. I joined it for extra credit. I stayed because of Ava. She had the kind of presence that bent gravity, quiet but undeniable. She wore dark lipstick and oversized sweaters, read poetry aloud like she was praying. Her laugh cracked through my ribcage the first time I heard. She noticed me. Not the version I presented. Not the girl who smiled politely and quoted Rumi to seem gentle. She noticed when my voice trembled during readings, when I hesitated before choosing a seat. She left sticky notes in my books, small affirmations, scrawled in green ink. Your words feel like weather. You don't have to whisper when you're with me. One day, she offered to walk me to the bus stop. We talked about favorite novels, about how silence could feel violent. She told me she'd once been kicked out of her church for loving another girl. I listened, terrified, fascinated, breathless. That was the first time someone described my feelings before I ever admitted them. With Ava, I started writing again. Not just essays, real things, thoughts, confessions, truths I never let surface. I wrote poems about jasmine-scented necks and eyes that held entire revolutions. And I stopped hiding them. But nothing stays hidden for long in a house built. I've glossed out one evening. I came home late. I'd spent 2 hours curled beside Ava on a library bench, reading Neruda. My mother was waiting at the door. You smell like something, she said, frowning. Like what? Like someone else. She sniffed my depata like a bloodhound, then threw it into the laundry without another word. The next week, she searched my drawers. She found one of Ava's sticky notes and accused me of befriending bad influences. My father told me to start studying in the living room. He said privacy breeds sin. I stopped bringing Ava up. but I didn't stop seeing her. I became a master of vanishing, slipping out after prayers, pretending I had group study, deleting call logs, and hiding letters in my pillowcase. The lies wore me down. Not because they were elaborate, but because they were necessary. Every truth I buried became another stone on my chest. Then came Adam. I hadn't seen him in years, not since his smirking face in college halls. He was the one who found my poetry notebook and passed it around like a dirty joke. He once told a group of boys Olivia's probably into girls. She always looks nervous around men. I hated him, so when he walked into our living room one weekend with flowers and a smug grin, I thought he was visiting. But my mother beamed up. My father shook his hand like a promise had been fulfilled. We've been speaking with his parents, she said later that evening, like it was already done. He's changed, I laughed out loud. Changed? Into what? A decent human being. That earned me another silent stare. In our home, sarcasm was a sin, especially from a daughter. I tried to protest. He made fun of me. He doesn't respect me. I don't want your being ungrateful. My father snapped. He's giving you a second chance. At what? I wondered. Hiding? Performing? You should be thankful, my mother added. You don't deserve to be picky, not after what people have heard about you. That stopped me cold. I looked at her, really looked, and realized she already knew. She knew about Ava, about the poems, about the nights I left through the back door, and she saw it not as pain, but as shame. Her daughter wasn't deviant, she was damaged. They thought Adam would fix me. But if he agreed to marry a girl like me, it was redemption. Social surgery, it didn't matter that I cried myself to sleep, that I flinched when he texted, that I wanted nothing to do with a man who once made my skin crawl with embarrassment. Didn't care, because I wasn't a daughter. I was a bargaining chip in their silent war against scandal. That night, I stood in front of my mirror again. I was 29. I touched the same cheek my father once slapped. I whispered again, I'm not real. Only this time, it wasn't confusion, it was rage. Because I realized they never saw me until I became a threat, not when I was quiet, not when I begged to be understood. Only now, when my truth threatened their image. Now I was dangerous, and for the first time, I wasn't ashamed of that. You don't realize when the air changes. It's subtle. Like a window cracked open in winter. At first, it's just cold. Then it's unbearable. After the proposal debacle, my family turned my house into a surveillance system. My father took my bedroom key. My phone disappeared every night. My laptop, the one I used to write Ava letters, was suddenly in for repairs. I wasn't grounded. I was imprisoned. Ava called the bookstore phone once while I was working. I heard her breath before her voice. Liv, are you okay? I opened my mouth, but the manager was already looking at me. I hung up the walls of my home grew sharper. Every glance from my mother felt like glass cutting my skin. She cooked my favorite meals, but wouldn't sit at the table. My brother Daniel no longer asked if I wanted tea. He just brewed 2 cups, one for himself, one for silence. Then, one night, I did what love makes all fools do. I ran. I slipped out barefoot through the back gate. Wrapped in the oversized gray hoodie Ava gave me last winter, it still smelled like her shampoo, lavender, and warmth. We met at the bus station. Under the flickering light where our hands first touched, Dot, she held me like a lifeline. We'll go somewhere, she whispered. We'll figure it out. I promise. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe I could just disappear and reappear in a better life. But when we kissed, soft and afraid, I heard footsteps behind me. Daniel. He didn't yell. He didn't swing. He just looked at me and said, You're killing Mom? That sentence hurt more than any slap ever could. I ran home before he could follow, trying to get back in before anyone noticed. But they were already waiting. My mother sat cross-legged on the living room rug, a Quran on her lap. My father stood beside her, arms crossed like stone. Daniel was behind me now, silent, not a brother, a witness. Sit, my father ordered. I didn't. I said sit. I obeyed. My mother began reading scripture aloud, calm, controlled. I remember her voice, steady, musical. It used to sing me lullabies. Now it recited verses like a curse. She poured oil into her palm, rose-scented, expensive. The kind she used during weddings. She reached out and smeared it across my forehead. You are not well, she said. But God can fix what's broken. I flinched. I'm not broken, I whispered. She pressed harder. You're possessed. Then my father placed his hands on my shoulders. I shook. Not because of fear, but because I could feel something leaving me. Not a spirit. Not evil. My last thread of belonging. I'm not sick, I said louder. They kept reading. I'm in love, I cried. You can't pray that away. That's when the slap came, not from my father, from my mother. Her palm, the same one that once tucked my hair behind my ear, cracked against my cheek with surgical precision. You are no daughter of mine, she said. My ears rang. The room spun. I didn't even cry because something deeper than pain was settling in, something like finality. I stood up. Or maybe I floated. I don't remember walking, but suddenly I was in the hallway, my breath jagged, my vision watery. Made it to the front door, but Daniel blocked it. I'm not doing this to you, he said. I'm trying to save you. No, I said. You're trying to keep me afraid. He didn't move. So I shoved him. He stumbled. I ran. I made it 10 feet before my father grabbed my bag and yanked it back. My phone was taken, my wallet emptied. They had already locked me out of my bank account. Told the aunties I was mentally unstable. Told the neighbors I was on drugs. They painted me as a cautionary tale before I even hit the street. I screamed until my throat went raw, but no one came. Our neighbor, Mrs. Handmaid, the one I used to help with groceries, opened her curtains for a second. She saw me banging on her door. Then she turned off the lights. I ended up walking miles. No destination, just away. I found shelter behind a train station loading dock, cold concrete, rusted stairs, the smell of diesel and filth. I sat with my knees tucked to my chest, the hoodie pulled tight over my head. That hoodie, Ava's hoodie, became my only skin, my only safety. It was 3 a.m. when it started raining. Not soft, violent, a sky-cleansing kind of storm. I wanted to scream, but I had no voice left. Instead, I whispered Ava's name like a prayer, and then the tears came, not like a breakdown, like a funeral, because I knew something had died, not my family. They had died to me long ago. What died was the last illusion that I could fix it, that I could be both, their daughter and my own person. That love would eventually soften them. It wouldn't. I was no daughter of theirs, and maybe, just maybe, that could be the start of something real. That night, I didn't sleep. Watched the city lights bleed into puddles, watched taxis come and go, people pass by me like I was invisible. And maybe I was, but deep inside, where the ache hadn't yet reached, something throbbed, a tiny spark, a pulse, a question. If they could cast me out for loving, then what else could I become now that I was free? I didn't remember falling asleep behind the train station. Just waking up that my body ached. My hoodie was soaked through. The world smelled like wet concrete and cigarette ash. Somewhere, a radio played Call to Prayer, distorted by distance. I wasn't sure if it was morning or just the sky pretending. I stood on legs that didn't feel like mine at some point. I wandered to a soup kitchen I'd seen years ago near the old market. I don't remember what I said to the woman at the counter. Maybe I didn't say anything at all. She looked at my face and handed me a cup of chai and half a sandwich. It was the first kindness I'd received from a stranger since I came out. Later that day, a man in a green jacket, government worker, maybe, pointed me toward a women's shelter. It was small, hidden behind a mosque parking lot. The sign outside said, Haven Home, no judgment, no shame. Inside, I met Miriam Dodd. She wore a cardigan 2 sizes too big, thick glasses, and a gentle, matter-of-fact way of speaking. That made it impossible to feel like a burden. She handed me a towel, a change of clothes, and a form to fill out. She didn't ask why I was there. She didn't ask if I'd really tried to get along with my family. She just said, "We're glad you're safe now." Safe. That word felt foreign in my mouth. The room they gave me was small, mattress on the floor, one window that didn't. Quite close, a chipped desk, and blank white walls. No pictures. And for once, I was grateful. I didn't want reminders. No photos of birthday dinners or awkward family vacations. No haunting smiles. No curated memories designed to soften the truth. Just silence. Just space. It was enough. I showered that night with the lights off. I stared at my reflection in the steamed mirror, traced the bruise on my cheekbone, and whispered, "You're still." Here out the next morning, Miriam brought toast and asked if I wanted to volunteer at a local thrift bookstore. Just a few hours a day. Keeps the mind busy. I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. The bookstore was dusty and perfect, towers of old paperbacks, shelves sagging with forgotten titles, yellowed receipts from decades past. The scent of aged ink became my new comfort. I sorted. Donations, alphabetized spines, swept floors with a slow, steady rhythm that gave my hands something to do while my thoughts caught up. There was no rush to be okay. Just motion. Just being. At night, I wrote letters to Ava. None of them ever got mailed. Dear Ava, I passed your street today. The curtains were drawn. I stood outside for 10 minutes pretending I had somewhere to be. Dear Ava, sometimes I still hear your laugh when I read Neruda. Like poetry lived inside your voice. Dear Ava, I wish I'd kissed you longer that night. Maybe it would have carried me through the storm. I never signed them. I wasn't sure who I was yet. At Haven, I met others. There was Noor, a trans man, whose uncle broke 3 of his ribs when he came out. He spoke in riddles and sarcasm, but sometimes I saw his hands tremble when he talked about belonging. Sana, just 16, who'd been locked in her room for 3 months after her. Mother caught her texting a girl from her class. She tried to kill herself before ending up here. The pain echoed. Different notes, same song, but there was laughter too. Small, tender moments that lived in the margins, sharing snacks during movie nights, crying during therapy, and then joking about eyeliner running like rivers, giving each other new names just for fun. We weren't healed, but we were healing. Every person there carried something broken, and every person was still walking. That mattered. One afternoon, Miriam sat beside me while I pretended to read. She placed a small notebook on my lap. "Try writing in here," she said. "Not for anyone else, just you." I stared at the cover. It was blank and red, like something waiting to bleed. I opened it and wrote one sentence. If they never accept me, what would I still become? It wasn't my question. It was the one my therapist asked me earlier that week. A soft-spoken woman named Farah who had the patience of an ancient tree. I didn't know the answer yet, but for the first time in weeks, I wanted to find out. Therapy was hard. I resisted, I cried, I lied, then admitted I lied. I told Farah I didn't want to become one of those people who never forgave. She looked at me gently and asked, "Why?" I had no good answer. I was afraid forgiveness meant letting them win. But Farah said something that stayed with me. Forgiveness doesn't set them free. It sets you free from carrying them inside you. I wasn't ready, but the seed was there. Days turned into weeks. The bookstore became my ritual. The shelter, my cocoon. I stopped checking my phone for messages that never came. I stopped peering through the cracks of who I used to be. Instead, I started building. I made friends with the chai vendor near the store. I read every used copy of Virginia Woolf I could find. I started sleeping with the window open, no longer afraid of what might come in. I even bought a small mirror for the wall above my bed. No pictures. Just me. Every morning, I stared into it and repeated 3 words. Still here. Still me. They weren't triumphant, but they were true. And sometimes truth is enough to keep breathing. A year later, I barely recognized myself in the best way possible. I didn't dress to disappear anymore. I wore colors that made me feel alive. Orange silk on Wednesdays, deep green linen on Sundays. I bought boots that clicked against pavement, like punctuation marks. I pierced my nose with a tiny silver hoop that shimmered every time I smiled. And I smiled, not often, but enough. I opened my own bank account, rented a small flat above the bookstore, learned how to cook for one. For the first time in my life, every corner of my space belonged to me. The dishes I picked, the books I stacked on windowsills, the poems taped to my bathroom mirror. Nobody could erase me anymore. Still, there were nights I stood by the window, wondering if Ava ever walked the same stretch of road, thinking of me. And then, one morning, she found me. I was at a Pride event, handing out bookmarks and collecting donations for a new LGBTQ youth shelter being built outside the city. My shirt was wrinkled. My hair was a mess. I wasn't trying to look like anything. That's when I saw her. Ava. She stood across the crowd, holding a tote bag filled with art supplies, blinking like she wasn't sure I was real. She looked older, not aged, just heavier, like time had filled her with everything she hadn't been allowed to say. I stepped toward her, unsure. She stepped forward too. We didn't run. We didn't cry. We just stopped 2 feet apart and breathed in the same air. You look like someone who doesn't hide anymore, she said, her voice like a gentle wind. I smiled. And you look like someone who finally picked herself. We didn't fall into each other's arms. Life isn't always like the movies. We sat on the grass, drank lemonade, and talked about the ache in between us. About how her parents sent her to live with relatives after they found her letters. How she spent 6 months in silence, believing I had given up. I never did. I told her. I know that now. We didn't pick up where we left off. We built something new. Slowly, not lovers. Not yet. Just survivors learning how to trust again. That same month, I began writing Dot. At first, it was anonymous. I posted on forums and blogs under the name Paper Daughter. I wrote about shame, about silence, about what it meant to be exiled for love. I wrote about the night on the train station floor, about the ring that never fit, about Ava's laugh in the dark. The posts weren't perfect. Some were messy. Some raw, but they were real, and somehow they were seen. Hundreds of messages came in. Then thousands stalked girls in hiding, doubt women in marriages they never chose. Teens locked in bedrooms, reading my words under blankets, whispering me too. I didn't expect any of it. I wasn't trying to be brave. I was just tired of disappearing. Eventually, I signed one post with my real name, Olivia Said. The flood that followed was overwhelming. News sites reposted it. A local journalist asked for an interview. My former teacher sent apology emails. One of my cousins reached out quietly, carefully, to say she wished she had spoken up for me. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt seen. And then came the letter. It was from a lawyer, a woman named Asha who had followed my writing for months. She offered to represent me pro bono. If you're open to legal action, she said, we could pursue defamation. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. My parents had told the community that I'd run off with a man, that I had a drug problem, that I had disgraced the family name with illegal behavior. There were WhatsApp messages, voice notes, and fabricated stories that had reached distant relatives and mosque elders. They didn't just silence me. They tried to rewrite me. So I said yes, not because I wanted their money, because I wanted my name back. We filed the suit quietly. Asha gathered evidence. Ava provided character testimony. Miriam wrote a statement. Even Daniel, distant, remorseful, agreed to submit a note acknowledging the lies. It was enough to move forward. And that's when I returned home. Not to stay. Not to explain, but to serve them the papers. It was a Monday morning, overcast. The air smelled like jasmine and rain. I wore black slacks, a burgundy shirt, and my new boots, the ones that clicked. I walked past the street corner where I once stood shivering, holding my disowned life in a single bag, past the gate where my suitcase had been left like garbage. And up the steps to the front door. I was once dragged from. My father answered. He looked older, or maybe just smaller. The absence of control had hollowed him. For a long second, he just stared. Then he said, "You have no right." I held up the envelope. "I have every right." I said, calm, steady, not shaking. He didn't take it, but he didn't close the door either. I placed the envelope on the table just inside the threshold. "Not one step more. I'm not here to argue," I said. "I'm here to reclaim what you tried to destroy." My mother appeared behind him. Her eyes flickered to the envelope, then to me. She didn't speak. I turned and walked away. They didn't follow. I didn't need them to. Back outside, The wind picked up. I felt it rush through me like a baptism, not to cleanse, but to affirm. I wasn't that girl anymore. The one who begged to be loved. The one who folded herself into the shape of obedience. I was the voice they couldn't erase. The courthouse smelled like paper and polish, like every institution that had once ignored someone like me. I sat beside Asha in the front row. She wore her hair in a tight braid, her heels sharp against the tile. She looked like someone nobody dared interrupt, and that made me feel braver just by sitting next to her. We had submitted all the paperwork. Every lie they'd spread, every witness, every screenshot. The judge would read them aloud. It wouldn't be a dramatic movie moment. No screaming, no slammed fists. Just justice, quiet, slow, undeniable dot. My parents didn't show up. They were never required to. The lawsuit had moved forward with enough written evidence. Their absence was expected, but others came. The courtroom filled gradually, aunties and embroidered shawls. A man who used to tutor me in chemistry, my old Chiron teacher, even one of my high school counselors, the one who said, "We all go through rebellious phases." I saw them all before they saw me, but I didn't look away. Let them witness who I'd become. Let them see the daughter they had tried to erase, alive, steady, and standing in her own name. Asha stood first. She recited the facts, the accusations my family had spread, the voice notes circulated on WhatsApp, the reputational damage, the emotional trauma. Then she asked the judge to allow a written statement from me. He agreed. So I stood. I took the paper from my purse with trembling hands. Not because I was scared, but because my hands remembered a time when they were only used to cover my mouth. I cleared my throat, and I read. My name is Olivia Saeed. I'm a writer, a daughter, a survivor of emotional exile. 1 year ago, I was forced from my home because I chose honesty over obedience. I refused to marry a man I did not love. I dared to tell the truth about my heart, and for that, I was labeled filthy, broken, and dangerous. My family, the people who raised me, chose pride over presence. They deleted my name from their story. They told the world I had run away with a man, that I was a danger to others, that I was unfit for love, for family, for faith. But I am here to tell you that I never stopped being a daughter. I cooked for them. I prayed with them. I cried in the same rooms they once celebrated in. I lived 1,000 small deaths trying to fit into the shape they wanted me to be, until I chose life instead. This case is not about revenge. It is about voice, about truth, about the right to exist without shame. I stopped there because I didn't need to say more. I looked up. There were tears in the back row. Woman in a red dupatta was holding her daughter's hand. A man stood slowly and walked out, not in protest, but in discomfort. I didn't hate him for it. Truth is loudest when it's undeniable. The judge thanked me. That was it. No verdict, no ruling that day. The written apology, the court-approved retraction, would be issued within 30 days, but I had already won. Outside the courthouse. One tugged at my hair. It smelled like clean dust and mango blossoms. The world didn't change. But I had, and then I saw Daniel, leaning against a pillar, arms crossed, eyes downcast. I didn't walk to him. I waited. He approached slowly, hands in his pockets like a boy who never learned how to apologize. I didn't know, he said. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know it would go that far. I looked at him, Dot. He had the same dimple, the same hands, but his posture was smaller now, like the weight of silence had finally bent him. I screamed, Danny. I said quietly. I begged. I know, he whispered. I bled. He nodded, Dot. I didn't forgive him, but I didn't hate him anymore, Dot, so I said, I hope you never forget. And I walked away. The written apology came 3 weeks later, stamped, legal, cold, but it said the words I never thought I'd hear. We acknowledge that the statements we made about our daughter, Olivia Said, were false and damaging. She did not run away. She was not unstable. She was honest. It wasn't love, but it was truth, and truth was enough. A year later, I married Ava in a small garden just outside the city. It wasn't a big ceremony. Just 10 chairs, a barefoot officiant, and rings we picked from a weekend street market. She wore blue. I wore yellow. We said our vows beneath a tree that bloomed only in August. Soft white flowers that fell like snow. We didn't need our families there. We had each other, and we had us. The home we built was modest. 1 bedroom. Bookshelves. From the thrift store. A kitchen painted the color of ripe peaches. No. Portraits hung on the walls, not because we lacked memories, but because we didn't want to curate a past. We wanted to live forward. But near the front door, above the shoe rack, we placed a mirror, frameless, clean. Every day before I left for work, I looked into it and reminded myself, still here. Still me, still the daughter I always was. Not broken, not ashamed, just brave.